Breaking news, the Russians have hacked into Kanye's brain and forced him to become a Trump supporter. Amazing, right? Hi, I'm Tomi, and let's flesh this out because my show starts right now. I'm Tomi Lahren, and yes, you heard me correctly. The Russians must have hacked into Kanye and forced him to support our democratically elected 45th president, Donald J. Trump. This is the only explanation. There is no way Kanye, by his own free will, would choose to be a Trump supporter without coercion, right? Same with the millions of Americans who fairly and freely elected Trump to be our next president. It has to be a sham. The Democrats and the mainstream media say so it must be true. It's amazing. I think Kanye got less flack for interrupting Taylor Swift at the VMAs back in 2009 because defending Beyonce is a social justice moment, but supporting our future president is cause for psychiatric evaluation. Is Kanye crazy? Perhaps. He did marry a Kardashian, but to suggest he has recently become crazy and should be now ostracized and attacked because of this is wrong.
Mr. Trump, Kanye, what did you guys discuss in your meeting today?
Just friends, and he's a good man. Doing well. Long time. We've been friends for a long time. Life.
And before the Dems go bananas about this, remember President Obama invited Mr. and Mrs. Drug Dealers Anonymous to the White House more than once. Here now to weigh in on Kanye-gate, Russia, and so much more, I welcome Navy veteran and member of the Truman National Security Project, Sean Van Diver. Sean, great to have you back.
Hey, Tommy. Hope you're having a great day.
You know I am, because I get to talk about a little Kanye West. So we'll start it off a little bit lighthearted, talk about Kanye, and then we'll move on to some more hard-hitting stuff and get your take. But what do you think about this? Kanye goes to Trump Tower, meets with our president-elect, and the mainstream media and Black Twitter are freaking out. What are your thoughts, Sean?
Well, I'll take it a different direction. I think that it's a travesty and a tragedy that people even care about Kanye West. Who cares about Kanye anyway? We've got folks in Aleppo tweeting out their final messages, and Kanye's trending on Twitter. Like, when's the last time that guy said anything relevant anyway?
Well, Sean, that's a very good point. And I wish people would get off of this, because President-elect Trump, as well as Kanye West or any other celebrity, can meet with whomever they choose to. And, you know, beyond that, it's rather interesting to me because there were so many Democratic fundraisers for Hillary Clinton that were $50K a pop, met with every celebrity from here to Timbuktu, and that was acceptable. But, you know, Kanye goes to Trump Tower, and all of a sudden that has become breaking news. But let's not make it breaking news anymore. I just want to get your thoughts. Let's move on to some important things. I want to talk about the Trump transition team. What are your thoughts? I know you're a Democrat. I know you're critical of Donald Trump in many ways. What do you think of the team he's assembling?
Well, I think the team he's assembling is kind of scary, right? I mean, it's no secret that Trump is Vladimir Putin's biggest fan, and he's bringing in Rex Tillerson to be Secretary of State, a man who has a wonderful relationship with Putin, and you couple that with the intelligence agencies coming out and confirming that Russia has in fact hacked our election, and that and recommending that we conduct further investigation.
Okay, but Sean, I want to stop you there. I want to stop you there because yes, the intelligence community has come out and said that there is a high probability, if not completely for certain, that Russia has.
And after the election.
Okay, so Russia has hacked into the DNC, but to say that Russia hacked the election is incorrect. So Russia did not write those emails. If Russia hacked into the DNC, they hacked into the DNC and they released those emails through WikiLeaks, but they didn't write the emails. I mean, and they obviously didn't hack into our election machines and change the election. Influencing and changing, very different things.
But that's why we need a bipartisan, an independent commission on this investigation, or a bipartisan independent commission to investigate Russia's meddling. We don't know if they've hacked into our voting machines. There are some precincts in Detroit that people are alleging they may have. But I'm not here to peddle conspiracy theories until they're proven. But the CIA came out and said that Russia got involved in our election with the express purpose of helping Donald Trump get elected. So I think that's alarming. But pivoting back to his to the rest of his cabinet. I mean, the one pick that I think maybe a good sign that may temper Trump and his allegiance to Putin is General Mattis. Now, I don't necessarily agree that a waiver is the right way to go. He's not, he's no George Marshall, but I think that if he makes it through, and I think he'll provide a sober and reasonable voice in the cabinet, along with General Kelly at DHS. I think those are two good picks. But other than that, the picks are alarming, to say the least.
Let's go back to that, Sean, because I want to get your expertise on that. You are a military man, so he is appointing a lot of generals to key positions. I know that you said that you're favoring the General Mattis pick, but beyond that, do you think that it's a good idea to have generals in the mix? I certainly do, but as a military man, what are your thoughts?
I think that a healthy mix of some generals and some civilian leaders that have been working in domestic and foreign policy for decades on end is a great mix. But we're not seeing folks that have governed. We're seeing generals, tons of generals, and our country is not a third world banana republic. Our country is founded upon the idea that civilian control of the military is a good thing. So I'm hoping that these generals, even General Mattis, who hasn't been out for that long, can keep that in mind and kind of temper that. And I'm confident in the fact that often senior military leaders are the first to call for diplomatic solutions rather than violence as a first resort. But we'll see. The rest of the picks aren't super.
Well, not from your perspective, but I will say this: I am a big fan of Rex Tillerson. I think it's a great choice. I think someone that's dealt on a business side of things is far more comforting to me than someone that is a politician or a bureaucrat. So you and I are going to disagree on that one. But beyond this, to say that someone is friendly with Putin in the regards of a business relationship or a diplomatic relationship or someone that's going to be able to negotiate with Putin from a place of strength, I don't think that's a bad thing. And I think that that's where Rex Tillerson is going to come in and be a strong voice for America first, but also a voice for diplomacy in regards to Russia, because I do think that we could reestablish what Hillary failed to do, which is a Russia restart.
So if we look back to the history of Russia, when Putin first came into office, Russia was, for all intents and purposes, a free country. Since Putin's been in power, and Putin has been in power consistently, regardless of whether he was the prime minister or the president, for nearly 20 years now, or for more than 20 years now, and he's turning it back into a dictatorship. There's no such thing as a free press in Russia. There's no such thing as free anything in Russia. It's turning back into what it was before.
Okay, but Sean, I'm going to turn your argument back on you, because I agree. And I think to applaud Putin for his human rights violations is wrong, and I would never do that. But beyond that, how come it's okay for President Obama to journey to Cuba and want to open relations there with the Castro family, which arguably worst dictatorship that we've seen in modern history? What's that?
What's the last country that Cuba invaded? Who are the last mass atrocities that Cuba invaded?
You're talking about human rights, though. You're talking about human rights, Sean. And when it comes to Cuban relations and human rights, the Castro family certainly does not have a strong record there. Correct me if I'm wrong.
If we're talking decades back in the past, then sure. But we're talking real.
No, we're talking now about the fact that Cuba does not have access to the internet. You were talking about freedom of the press. You're talking about the people of a nation being free and having a fair election system, freedom of the press, freedom of information. Cuba certainly does not have that, Sean.
Establishing these relations will help with that. Putin has shown that
establishing the relations with Putin would also help that. You can't have both sides of the argument there. If you're going to say we need to open relations to Cuba, we need to open relations to Russia as well.
They are two totally different animals, and you know it.
Yeah, one's communist, and one is under the regime of the Castro regime, which we know to be detrimental to human rights.
One is routinely invading other countries, invading their neighbors. One is routinely hacking into European neighbors and other Eurasian neighbors on the regular, going in and trying to affect elections. Right now, they're trying to affect the election in Germany, just like they did here.
Okay.
I mean, the real question is, what are Trump's ties? Who is Trump financially beholden to in Russia? That's what this bipartisan and independent investigation needs to find out: is who is Trump beholden to in Russia, and who's going to be pulling his string?
Now, Sean, I agree that we do need to know that, and I would say the same thing if we had Hillary Clinton, which, has ties to every Middle Eastern entity known to man. But, beyond that, and I do have to wrap, I wish we had more time. I certainly do, because I like our conversation. But beyond that, if this whole investigation is into Russian hacking for the purpose of cybersecurity for the United States, I am all for it. If this is another lame attempt for the Democrats to discredit the fair and free election of Donald Trump, I'm not for it, because I think that it's, again, another BS tactic, whether it be blaming fake news, whether it be a silly recount effort. It's a waste of $7 million. Beyond that, Sean, but if the goal is cybersecurity for the United States of America, I'm all for it. But this is just another stupid tactic.
Seen Republicans do that, right? The Benghazi committee got disbanded last week because, the election's over, doesn't matter anymore. We don't have anybody to take out.
Well, the person that, lied to the families of the fallen did not become our president, thank goodness. But, Sean, I appreciate our conversation. As always, it's lively. It's lively and respectful, and I invite you back anytime. We'll continue the conversation.
Can't wait.
All right, next, my Blaze brother Buck Sexton took on CNN's Poppy Harlow and won, but also got called sexist. Imagine that. Buck joins me next to explain. We'll be right back. All right, so this is how it goes. If you're a conservative, you don't get to say much. You don't really get to make a point or even win an argument without the army of the left coming for you with the labels. Now, take a look at this sexist encounter.
There is the reality of Russian
Why is
hacking.
it obviously very politicized?
I was about to say, there's the motive behind it specifically. Was this to help Donald Trump? That hasn't actually come out from the IC in any kind of official report. That's just from sources reported on.
It is what the CIA believes. It is not what all of the intelligence officials believe.
And that jump is critical here. But I'm sorry?
You're saying not everyone in the CIA agrees with that assessment. Has someone told you that?
I can tell you that in every assessment that's ever written in the CIA of any significance, there's somebody who disagrees.
So
and
you're
also
making an assumption there.
No, the Washington Post reporting itself has said that this isn't a unanimous consensus opinion within the CIA.
So wait, she can talk over him, be aggressive and demean him, but if he fires back or just tries to speak, he's a sexist? Well, he's right about Russia, by the way. But joining me now, host of the Buck Sexton Show, Buck Sexton. All right, Buck, so I saw you actually put an Instagram post about this because you had someone in your comment section that was telling you they're a sexist. You're on a panel of, mostly women, and you try to speak, they talk over you, and then you're the sexist, though. Tell me how that went down.
Well, Tommy, always great to see you. And look, this is the way it goes for a conservative who's actually going to be a conservative over at CNN. I mean, you can sort of play by the House rules over there and moderate your opinions and change what you say. But if you come out blazing as a conservative, you are actually going to get lit up. They're going to interrupt you. I always tell people, you know who the anchor likes and doesn't like based on usually who gets the first interruption and then also who gets the most interruptions. I've actually had a female, it was Donna Brazil. I will name names, interrupt me once to tell me to stop interrupting her. I mean, this is the way the game is played over there. And it's a wonder why, more people don't just sort of see this and say to themselves, hold on, it's almost like it's rigged, like they're trying to hold one point of view above other points of view. But yeah, I get interrupted over there all the time. In fact, I was told recently, Tommy, that by pointing out the nonsense from the media on Russian hacking and how it's changed the election, I was endangering those serving overseas. I was told that on TV by somebody who's never served overseas, as I have, by the way.
Well, exactly, and we're going to get to that in a moment, but this happens to all of us. It certainly does. I think even worse for me sometimes. If I voice any opinion against Black Lives Matter, I'm also endangering Black people in this country, is what they like to say. So it doesn't matter what you say. If you don't say their narrative, if you don't say their sound bites, then they're going to come at you with whatever labels they have. But it's interesting, though, that Donna Brazil told you something about a rigged election, or she was talking about something being rigged.
She interrupted me and said, stop interrupting her. Yeah, it was amazing.
Without a trace of But, the fact that Donna Brazil is really saying anything ever, besides just slipping Hillary debate questions, is beyond me. But, Donna's going to go out in a blaze of glory regardless. But what you were talking about there, to me, is so important. The media has run away with this story of Russian hacking because all of a sudden they are so concerned about cybersecurity. Hillary's private server, that wasn't an issue. But, boy, now it's a big issue, Buck.
All of us who work for the federal government, Tommy, got a very interesting letter in the mail. I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of us, about the Chinese hacking of OPM, for example. This was huge. And the media kind of reported on it like, just another day at the White House, I suppose. Things happen, stuff happens. This has been so clearly partisan in terms of the way that they've been covering this. I mean, the New York Times is, I think it was 8,000 words that they wrote today on the perfect weapon. That's what they called it for the election, which was this hacking of Podesta and the DNC's email accounts, among lots of other hacking that goes on too. But, you know, it's the way they position themselves first, Tommy, is they say that this is all about bipartisan unity. We need to be bipartisan on this. This is about the country and security and elections and integrity. And that's just to get everybody talking about it. And then the moment that becomes the focus, it's, well, you guys know that you stole the election from Hillary, right? I mean, that's the game. This is the sort of three-card Monty that they play.
Well, beyond that, I would just like to point out that Russia was not in the business of writing any emails. That was all them that did the writing. Yes, Russia may have exposed it. There might have been a hack that took place. But also, Buck, I don't want to use the term Buck, but the buck kind of stops with the Obama administration when it comes to that one, doesn't it? I don't know how they want to blame the Russian hacking on President-elect Donald Trump, who hasn't been in office. I think this was kind of under the purview of the Obama administration to solve this back when they heard about it in late September. But now all of a sudden it falls on our shoulders to address.
Yeah, well, there are two. This is a critical point. I mean, there are two very important aspects of the story, Tommy. One of them you're touching on now. And that is that the whole notion of cybersecurity falls under the commander-in-chief, falls under the executive branch. And so it's a failure of the Obama administration that is highlighted only now because it affects Democrats and their power. But it's been happening for years to private corporations. It's been happening to sensitive military information. It's been happening to sensitive diplomatic information. And there's been minimal pushback. In fact, in that New York Times article today that I mentioned, they suggested that there were meetings held, and after the meeting, everybody would say, okay, we need to do something about this hacking. I mean, this isn't the government. This is President Obama. This is the State Department. And then they'd all say, well, we're not actually going to do anything, right? I mean, they realize that that's how this administration is going to treat these issues. And then I also have to say, this notion that we're going to do this investigation and find out that there's some magic bullet way to stop this. No, if John Podesta is going to respond to, hey, we are the IT team, give us your password so we can reset your email, they're going to hack your email. This isn't the Matrix. Like, there's no genius sitting in a basement somewhere or in a government facility in Russia who's looking at zeros and ones on a screen and pulling off some kind of special IT magic. This is just, don't be dumb and give somebody your password. So what we're going to find from this is also, I think, a much exaggerated aspect of the whole inquiry and the whole discussion.
Well, this is from the same campaign who the head of this campaign, Hillary Clinton, didn't know that C meant classified. So the fact that John Podesta would respond to an email and make his password vulnerable is not really surprising to any of us, I don't believe. But, you know, beyond this, I want to know what they're trying to get out of this whole thing. They find out it was Russia. Okay, Russia hacked the DNC, exposed the DNC for what they were talking about. And then what? What do they want to, like a redo? Is that the goal? I'm not sure.
Absolutely. Well, I think what it does is gives essentially cover, Tommy, and I believe that this is the purpose of this from the very beginning, because as I said, the Russian hacking has been known about for months. When they thought Hillary was going to win, they didn't really care that much about the hacking. It was kind of just an irritation. So now, after the fact, it's become a national security threat, and we should all be completely freaked out about it. But what it does is create a blanket excuse, always and at all times, to completely undermine and discredit the Trump presidency, not even from day one, from before day one, before they even take office, that he's an illegitimate president, that he shouldn't be afforded the respect of office, that he shouldn't be treated like he's the commander-in-chief for all Americans, which he is, whether people like it or not. And it's really the sort of manifestation of the not my president meme, which I literally saw up close and personal, Tommy, here in New York, because there were protests outside my door the day after the election, people with placards saying, not my president. Actually, no, guys, incorrect. I mean, you can hold up whatever placards you want. This is still America, but that is not true. And also my other favorite one, by the way, was that the people united will never be defeated. They were chanting that one. False, apparently. Or I guess the people who voted for Trump won will never be defeated.
Well, yeah, it's always us against them, and they're going to pull whatever tactic they can. Fake news, they blame that as well. And now it's Russia. Now the recount effort that was a dismal failure. I'm wondering when they're going to accept reality. I don't even think January 20th is going to be the day. We're going to probably continue this up until, I don't know, his reelection. I'm not sure, Buck. But thanks for braving CNN for us conservatives and holding your ground, as always. I don't think you're a sexist. I think that, if anything, you handled yourself with great composure and very gentlemanlike. So appreciate that, and thanks for being with me tonight.
Great to see you, Tommy.
All right, still ahead. Turns out some prominent civil rights leaders back Attorney General pick Jeff Sessions, but I bet the mainstream won't talk about it. But we will, because political commentator Alfonso Rachel joins me next. We'll be right back.
Was denied a federal judgeship in 1986 because he allegedly used the N-word and made a joke about liking the KKK.
Come on. What white guy hasn't been accused of being racist for making a joke?
He has this reprehensible record of racism, racist statements, racist acts.
He also joked about the KKK, and he did also admit to joking about the KKK. And as you know, for so many of us, it's no laughing matter.
He is a favorite of people who hold bigoted views.
So why are they so convinced he's a racist? Well, back in 1986, a former colleague of Sessions came out and claimed Sessions had made a racist remark, which the then federal prosecutor denied. So hearsay from 1986. Wow. But is it enough? Joining me now to weigh in, political commentator Alfonso Rachel. Alfonso, great to have you back.
Hey, good to be back, buddy.
Oh, Alfonso, I got to tell you, I'm really getting tired of this racist label. They're going to throw it at Attorney General pick Jeff Sessions. Do you think it's being overused, especially in this circumstance?
Oh, that race card has definitely been overcharged. Yes, much overused.
I think discussing this, though, it's very unfair to Attorney General pick Jeff Sessions that they're saying someone, a former colleague, said that he made a racist remark. He made a joke about the KKK. And all of a sudden, because a former colleague said that he said something bad, now we call him a racist. It just seems like we're jumping from point A to point Z awfully quickly.
I make jokes about the KKK all the time because the KKK is a big joke. And what's an even bigger joke is that these people who are loyal to the party that created the KKK, that's an even bigger joke. And for people who claim to be such big proponents of the scientific community, you know, one of the things that you need, I guess, to be a good scientist is evidence. There's no witnesses. There's no evidence. There's no testimony to validate this statement. So what are these people going off this statement on? Are these just going on faith? That doesn't work.
Well, it's also the same people that don't really have faith in a higher being, most of them. Anyway, but moving on from that, I've had quite the last couple of weeks, and all over Twitter and everywhere else, they throw the labels at me consistently and constantly. That's their favorite thing to do, characterize me as some kind of a queen of the alt-right. And I want to ask you about the alt-right here. I know it exists. It certainly does. There are folks that claim to be in the alt-right, and they're proud of being in the alt-right. But now that label, has alt-right become the new racist?
As far as, to tell you the truth, I haven't really followed so much about the alt-right. The only big thing I know about the alt-right is this guy, Richard Spencer or something like that the media had to go and track down and dig up to somehow filter the alt-right through him. And, that's just typical of the liberal narrative. They take one thing and they try to blow that up to be the big picture. I myself have not really followed the alt-right thing. I don't need to, a conservatism still works just fine for me. The Republican principles still work just fine to me. It doesn't really need some alt-right overhaul. Not trying to knock them because I really don't know that much about it, but I do know what the media is trying to twist them with by this filter of this Richard Spencer guy.
Yeah, they find one kook, and then all of a sudden that is the new voice for conservatism. And then they label everybody else that's in conservatism and has a voice a member of the alt-right. So, again, it's another way to demean us and to silence our voices, which we know is not going to happen. We don't fit in their box. We don't play by the rules, and we never will. But, moving on from that, I talked to my first guest about this. He was a Democrat. But I want to get your take. So, Kanye West, we know he's been having some psychiatric problems. I think he's always been rather crazy, to be honest. Some of his episodes have certainly been characteristic of someone that's not the most stable human being in the world. But, yesterday he visited Trump Tower. He spoke with Donald Trump. And really, the black community, the popular culture community, the media at large is really going after Kanye over this. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's inconsistent to what they're always trying to say. It's within the black community, white folks are never going to accept us, and it's always going to be like this and always going to be like that. And then the second they see a black person get accepting by a white person, then all of a sudden they're still mad. So this now. Kanye is a propaganda artist. He goes out to do things that are controversial. He makes controversial statements. He does controversial things. He knows how to milk it. So how much I would invest in terms of is he serious about what he's doing? I really don't know. The guy's he's a burger short of a Happy Meal, but at the same time he knows how to be productive with it for his own gain.
Well, he wants to be in the media. He wants the spotlight. He wants the limelight. So that's characteristic of Kanye West. But I think for people to attack him on it, I got, the same attacks, not really hurtled at me, but through others that I've spent some time with in the last couple weeks. I spent a little bit of time with Trevor Noah as well as some time with Charlemagne, and the media had fun with that one as well. It seems that because I disagree with those folks on political issues or we have different worldviews, that suddenly I shouldn't be able to hang out with them anymore. And they actually went so far as to say that both Charlemagne and Trevor Noah were bad for black culture because they were seen with me. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts on that is that it's not very tolerant. It's not very accepting. It's not very diverse. I mean, how dare these people on their side exercise that diversity of thought and diversity of views that they're always so open-mindedly talking about. So they're basically in conflict. They're in gross conflict with their own narrative. But that's, as the saying goes, if they didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have these standards at all.
Well, exactly. You're really damned if you do, damned if you don't, if you're a conservative, no matter what color or gender or sexual orientation you are. If you take time to spend with those that are black Americans, then all of a sudden those folks are coons or Uncle Toms, and I am just doing it to prove I'm not a racist, and I shouldn't be doing it. And then if I don't hang out with people of the black American race, then all of a sudden I don't have black friends and I'm a racist. So either way, I guess they think I'm a racist. But again, we don't fit in their boxes. The last thing I want to talk to you about, though, is something that you told me about, which is very interesting. High production value, by the way. You're doing a new series called Sinisterbia. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Tell me about it. Tell my audience about it, because I watched it and I thought it was very interesting.
Well, I almost feel bad about making something good out of bad things, but the liberal narrative is almost like a gift that keeps on giving, and the whole point of Sinisterbia is to illustrate the absurdity of the liberal narrative. It's done in the vein of the Twilight Zone and Tales of the Dark Side, and basically it shows the detrimental irony of the liberal worldview. So we just use this production, me and some friends just got together, slapped this together. We got a whole series of it that we're trying to produce and hope to get support for it. But that's basically what it does. The liberal narrative is just a joke that keeps on giving, and hopefully we can actually shed some light on their absurdity.
I think the thing that conservatives need to do, and what you're doing, what I certainly try to do, is bring our message to the mainstream, or even outside of the mainstream, but making it more mainstream, because what the liberals do so well is they tell stories, and they're very descriptive. They have great imagery, great graphics, a great social media game, and for too long conservatives have been lacking at that. But this is the the new age of conservatism, and I think that things like this are they're thought-provoking and they're important, and they do it in an artistic way, but they also bring some real things to light. So I encourage everyone to check that out. Where can they find it?
If they go to my website, alfonsorachel.com, they'll be able to see it there, or on my YouTube channel. It's also alfonsorachel.com. If they just type in Sinisterbia, or if they type in the Hillary doll, they'll be able to find it.
Ooh, I like it. Mixing horror with Hillary Clinton is obviously not a far reach. Alfonso, as always, thanks for being with me, and good luck on your project. I certainly will support it.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you. Up next, this former congressman isn't taking waterboarding off the table. Pete Hoekstra joins me next. We'll be right back.
We are living in a world where in the Middle East they're cutting people's heads off. They're chopping a Christian's head off, and many of them. We talk about Foley, James Foley, and what a wonderful young man. Boom, they're chopping heads. So then I went into this. I said, yes, I would bring back waterboarding, and I'd make it a hell of a lot worse than waterboarding.
Yeah, what did you have in mind?
I had in mind going worse than waterboarding. It's enough.
So there's been a lot of hoopla surrounding those comments because, as we know, waterboarding, along with other interrogation torture techniques, was banned by Congress in 2009. But here's my question. Will it make America safer? Here to answer that and more, former Michigan Congressman and former House Intelligence Committee Chairman Pete Hoekstra. Congressman Hoekstra, thanks for being with me tonight.
Hey, it's great to be with you, Tommy. Thank you.
Oh, my goodness, we've got so much to talk about with regards to the CIA. But before we go there, I want to ask you what you think about Trump's choice for CIA Director Mike Pompeo. Good choice?
I think it's a great choice. I know Congressman Pompeo. I've worked with Congressman Pompeo. This is a guy that understands the threat that we face as a country. He understands the threat that we face from radical Muslims. And I think it's exactly the kind of leadership that is going to be focused on the threat and will focus the CIA on defeating this threat, getting the information we need to defeat this threat. Great choice.
So beyond that, there's been a lot of talk about waterboarding from all the way back in the presidency of George W. Bush, of course. That was a hot topic, and Trump has brought that back, especially through the debate process this election cycle, something that we've discussed over and over again. So the main thing that I want to talk about is, will it make America safer? Because there are those on both sides of the political aisle that disagree on that concept. What is your thought on waterboarding and other enhanced interrogation techniques?
Well, I think, the evidence, at least as I've seen it, as others in my position or other leaders in the intelligence community, many of them have said that enhanced interrogation techniques, especially, remember, when did we use them? We used them 3 times and we used waterboarding 3 times on some key individuals that we captured in the immediate aftermath of 9/11. And the people in the intelligence community at that time said enhanced interrogation techniques, waterboarding, helped us get information and helped us get information that kept America safer. It's not a technique that we used indiscriminately. It was used in a very limited way. It's a moot discussion at this point because Congress has outlawed it. If this administration and others want to reopen this, they're going to have to go to Congress and they're going to have to have conversations in secret and decide exactly what we can do, when we can do it, and for what purpose.
Well, Congressman, to me, what is so frustrating, though, is this hasn't been a conversation about will it make America safer or what is the best technique or best method. The conversation has been, is it right or wrong morally? It's become a political discussion more so than a military or strategic discussion. And that is where I find the problems to lie, because there are even some in the community that say these techniques don't work, that perhaps they lead to false information. So that's what my concern is. But I want to take the politics out of it and just discuss strategically if it's smart or sound or not. But there are so many things with the CIA right now that I think a Trump presidency is going to have to encounter. So first of all, I want to ask you about this. I was a little bit shocked, a little upset when I heard that Donald Trump almost thought he was too smart to attend regular or daily intelligence briefings. And I'm a Trump supporter. How does that make you feel, Congressman?
I don't have a problem with that at all. There have been presidents before who haven't participated in the daily brief. It's a contextual thing, and if there's any breaking intelligence, they will cover that in the morning. But to be schooled each and every day and to commit, a half hour to 45 minutes each morning to that, there's other ways that this president can get this information. My understanding is that General Flynn is getting these briefings at least 3 or 4 times a week. The vice president is getting these briefings 3 or 4 times a week. And so, if there's something that they discern as being imminently of interest or a threat to the United States, excuse me, they can go to Donald Trump and say, Mr. President, you need to see this. You need to have the background, because we need, this is going to be a developing issue. For him to be involved each and every day is not essential. What this is, there's a bunch of people in the intelligence community who believe that they are so important that they need to have the president's ear first thing every morning. It provides them unlimited access. They're not getting that to Mr. Trump. Get over it.
Well, Congressman, that may be
Michael
true.
Flynn,
that may be true, and I understand in practice that is certainly true. And I could understand if once he took office, if he said, you know what, I don't need to go to these every single day. But I think that it just makes some folks uneasy and uncomfortable because they feel like it's there's not a desire there to learn or not a desire there to take in this information before he's even entered office. And there were so many that were skeptical of his willingness to learn and be a part of the process from the outset. So for me, as a Trump supporter, I wish he would say less about this because it makes people uneasy for no reason and focus on other battles, because there are certainly going to be other battles. He should pick them maybe a little bit more wisely.
But remember, a lot of this is just made up by the media, because I think it was leaked that he wasn't getting his briefings every day. He didn't come out and brag about it and say, I'm not taking these briefings every day. As a president-elect, he's putting together his team and he's picking the people that he needs in the right positions. He's working on thinking about, how do I get this economy moving? How do I reform the tax code? What do I need to do to rebuild America's strength? And all of those types of things. And what we're trying to, whether it's he's not taking his briefings every day, or whether it's, he's not serious about Russian hacking, or, the media is manufacturing each and every day. They're manufacturing issues, trying to discredit this man or trying to discredit his election.
Well, that's a fair assessment.
Let's focus on the real issues.
You know, Congressman, that is a fair assessment, and I obviously rail against that on a daily basis, so I understand. There are just moments where I wish he would pick his words a little bit more carefully. It would make it a little bit easier to defend him, and then we could focus on the big issues where we really do need to go to battle for our president-elect, because I'm willing to do so. I just wish he was perhaps a little bit more careful and stop taking so much of the bait. I think it would be helpful. But, you know, then again, he's got a mind of his own, and we'll have to wait and see. I'm going to give him a little breathing room, wait till he gets in office. I like the cabinet that he's assembling. I think he's got a lot of intelligent folks around him that I do trust. So good things ahead, but we all have to be a little bit critical in moments where that's expected of us as good Americans as well. But thank you for being with me tonight, and you're welcome back anytime.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Tommy.
Thanks, Congressman. But still ahead, where does this faithless Texas elector get off on not voting for the people's choice, Donald Trump? Well, let's discuss. That's next.
Super and a Republican presidential elector from Texas wrote a New York Times op-ed today entitled, "Why I Will Not Cast My Electoral Vote for Donald Trump." He wrote, "Electors of conscience can still do the right thing for the good of the country. Presidential electors have the legal right and the constitutional duty to vote their conscience. I believe electors should unify behind a Republican alternative. I pray my fellow electors will do their job and join with me in discovering who that person should be."
And add him to the attention-seeking and snowflake list. Wow, dude. Joining me now, a member of the Dallas Young Republicans who was in the room at the state convention when Mr. Chris Suprin was elected. So let's get his take. I welcome Dallas Young Republicans member Jared Atkinson. All right, Jared, now you were telling me before this, to even say his name, he's an attention seeker. He's not on a moral high ground of any sort. He really just wants his name in the headlines. And we know that the New York Times and other publications are going to cater to that. So we're not even going to talk about him anymore. He doesn't deserve it. But he is not alone. There are other electors that are considering being faithless. What do you think about that?
I think if they have an actual basis for that, then I would respect that. But we don't know anything new today than we knew on election day. So if there was something like if Trump died, like, yeah, totally be faithless and all that kind of stuff. But we don't know anything substantially different. He's the same guy today as he was on the day that the voters decided that he should be our next president.
The thing that, to me, is most disturbing about this whole thing is that some of these electors, and even some before the election that were in the Never Trump movement, or not all of those folks, but some of those folks, they felt that it was their duty to stop this election. It was their duty to intervene. And now the faithless electors believe it is their duty to intervene. But for me, it's, you know, the American people have spoken. And it is their duty to do the will of the American people who voted for Donald Trump. So to me, this is a slap in the face of the millions that voted for Trump. I don't know why they can't see it that way, though. But, you know, you've been there. You said that you've seen some letters that have come in, those urging electors to be faithless. Tell me about that.
I don't think it's urging. I think it's demanding. They're very rude to a lot of these electors, and they're doing it just for their own pleasure. I think they know that you know, my friend Alex is not going to change his vote. They know these things. They just want to get into a fight, and it's for their own private you know, gratification.
And it would take quite a miracle to deny him this at this point, but it's not saying that that couldn't happen. Now, if it does happen, if we do have some faithless electors, I think it would take, what, 20 of them or more to sway their vote, or perhaps more. They're trying to convince about 20 right now. There's a list that's saying maybe 37 are considering it, but they'd have to convince quite a few folks to change their vote. And then beyond that, it would still get thrown to the House of Representatives, which would almost certainly verify Trump's presidency. So just wasting a lot of time, a lot of energy, causing more controversy, soaking up the headlines. Meanwhile, we've got a country to run, and we've got folks in Aleppo that are, like my first guest said, writing their final death messages, and we're still contesting a fair and free election. I don't know where we go from here. I don't know how we bring this country together. Do you think it's going to change after the inauguration, or are we still going to see this crap?
Oh, I have no idea. I just try to like do my own thing and go forward with my business and my personal, you know, political activism. But
you're part of the Republican group, though, and there were some, you know, back. I know that the chair of the college Republicans, Alex Smith, when the Trump tapes came out, I know she released a very public statement saying she could no longer support Donald Trump. There are many high-profile voices within the Republican Party, the GOP party, the conservative movement that have voiced those similar things. Now, as a Republican, does that frustrate you? Do you have conversations with those that are in that movement? I mean, what is your thought process behind this? I know what mine is, but.
Well, as a delegate to the National Convention, and I was bound to Trump, one of the reasons I was elected was to go and actually try to unbind the delegates. So my congressional district was very much a Ted Cruz district.
Sure, as many are in Texas.
And so I was elected to go up there and yell and try to unbind the delegates. And I tried. And I tried really hard, but then I lost. And so, you know, when you lose something like that, you realize you just have to move on.
At some point, yeah.
And so, you know, for me, moving on was, instead of worrying about the stuff that happened at the national level, I worried about the state reps and the congressional races and the local races, because that's where I can make a difference. And, you know, I've always realized that I can't really make that much of a difference at the national level. So I always focus on the
Well, it's important because the state and local governments are what are really the backbone. People forget that, I think, that the state and local governments, they make the federal governments, not the other way around. But beyond that, I want to talk a little bit about Ted Cruz, because I was very impressed when Ted Cruz came out and endorsed Donald Trump. And then he met with Donald Trump afterwards. There were some murmurings there. He may have been the attorney general. What do you think about Ted Cruz, Senator Ted Cruz, at this point? Are you still a big fan?
Yeah, absolutely. As a senator, he's a great senator. So I'm actually glad that he's staying our senator and not going up to AG, where he could be fired tomorrow.
Right. That's what some were discussing as well, that they like what he's able to do for the state of Texas as a senator. So the fact that he didn't get a pick was not really a reflection upon him or a reflection upon Donald Trump. It was just, where can we utilize him best? And that should be how we all feel, all on the same team, the America First team, not even Republicans and Democrats. But thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you.
All right, so next. I gave you my word I would not be a Trump minion, and I will keep my promise. My final thoughts are next. We'll be right back. It's time for final thoughts. So I hear there's a coalition of liberal groups trying their damnedest to convince GOP electors to vote against Donald Trump, and a move that would not only be faithless, but a slap in the face to the millions of Americans who voted for Donald Trump. Seriously? This again? At least one of those crybabies is from the great state of Texas. But I thought after a humiliating defeat, the Never-Trumpers would give it up, but clearly not. I'm still wondering what they're trying to accomplish here. Even if they were able to gather enough faithless traitors, this thing would still go to the House, which would almost certainly verify Trump's presidency. I know the remnants of the Never Trump movement would like to stay on their high horses and continue to march with their vote your conscience baloney, but at some point, it's time to move on. For crying out loud, I expect the Democrats and the Green Party to pull this crap. I expect them to protest the election, wear safety pins, blame Russia, and spend millions on a recount. But why are we cannibalizing our own yet again? Trump is going to be our 45th president. So instead of whining about it and trying every BS tactic to prevent it, why don't you do something constructive for our country? Now, that being said, I told you I wasn't going to be a Trump minion. I gave you my word I would hold Trump's feet to the fire and use my voice for truth, not just partisanship. And I keep my promises. So, future President Trump, this message is for you. Please, for the love of God, learn. Get off Twitter and learn. Take a break from your chest-beating victory tour and go to a security briefing. Don't go to war with the CIA. It's not helping matters. I promise you it's not. Many of us, myself certainly included, stuck our necks out and put our reputations on the line to get you elected. I don't regret it, but now is the time to put your money where your mouth is. To be fair, the man hasn't been in office yet, so we need to keep that in mind and give him some breathing room, and I can do that. I like his cabinet picks so far, and I'm confident in the team he's building. But to be a great coach, you've also got to be a smart and skilled player. I'm an America First cheerleader, not a Trumpkin, and mark my words, I will remain optimistic but critical. There is too much at stake here. The contest is over. It's not enough to just be better than Hillary anymore. Mr. Trump is better than that, and so are the millions who put their faith and vote on his side. We did it for our future, for our children's future, for our country's future, not for Mr. Trump's ego. You're not our savior. Jesus Christ is our savior, but we made you our captain, so go fight win, not against the Democrats or the Never-Trumpers or the snowflakes. Fight for Americans, all of us. This is such an opportunity. Please, Mr. Trump, don't waste it like Obama did. Those are my final thoughts. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Tomi Lahren, and catch me on ABC Nightline tonight at 12:35 a.m. Eastern. But from Dallas, God bless and take care.